Hi, everyone, and welcome. It's so great to have you all here. I know many of you are tuning in from all over the world, so good morning, good afternoon, and maybe even good evening, wherever you are. A big welcome back to those who've joined our previous ECONYL Academy sessions. It's always wonderful to see familiar names. And to those joining us for the first time, we're thrilled to have you with us for this special conversation. I'm Ludovica De Santis, and I'll be your host today. I'm joined by Dr. Vincenzo Gente, Policy Officer at the European Commission, who will help us unpack how the revised EU Waste Framework Directive is set to reshape the textile sector. Before we dive in, a big and special thank you to Aquafil for spearheading this initiative. This webinar is part of a bigger initiative called the ECONYL Academy, which is a resource platform to talk about ideas, best practices, industry benchmarks, and many other interesting and relevant topics, all as a way to always push the boundaries to do things better, both for the planet and for its people. Before we dive in, a little bit of housekeeping, as usual. You'll find the chat box on the bottom right of your screen. Feel free to drop your thoughts, questions, or even just a wave, as we love hearing from you. If you experience any technical issue, just type it in the chat and our team will jump in to help. And finally, good news, this webinar is being recorded. So if you need to step away, don't worry, we'll send you the replay link right after the session. All right, that's enough from me. It's time to hear from our guest. So allow me to officially introduce Vincenzo Gente, Policy Officer at DG Environment European Commission. Dr. Gente, thank you for being with us. The floor is all yours.
Good afternoon to everybody. Thank you for the invitation. And I will try to share my slides to provide you with an overview of the recently entered into force revised Waste Framework Directive. Yes, I can introduce myself. I'm a policy officer in the DG Environment, Director General for the Environment of the European Commission, and I'm working in the unit that is called Circular Economy and Secondary Raw Materials. In the unit, we are dealing with waste legislation, so the Waste Framework Directive we talked to you today, but also other pieces of legislations like the packaging waste. Sorry, we changed now. It's no longer the packaging waste regulation, but we're dealing with the waste shipping regulation, with the WE directive, and so other sectorial pieces of legislations. But today I will focus on the targeted revision of the Waste Framework Directive that entered into force last 16th of October, when the amending directive was after the publication of the amending directive in the official journal. In the Waste Framework Directive, in these revisions, there are two main sectors that have been addressed by the Commission and by the legislators. One is textile, which includes also footwear, which will be the focus of the presentation today, and the other one is food waste. These two sectors have been selected or been put forward in these pieces of legislation because they represent two of the sectors which have the highest impact on environment and climate change. So textile has on average the fourth highest impact after food, which is the first, housing and mobility. So these are the reasons why this has been some of the reasons why these sectors have been selected. For food waste, the target revision includes binding food waste reduction targets. But I will not talk about this. Now we just talk about the textiles and the elements that are included in the revised Waste Framework Directive. So in the slide, you can see the three main blocks of provisions that are new and that are specifically referring to textiles. The first one, and the most relevant one, is the introduction of mandatory extended producer responsibility for textiles and footwear in member states. The other point is about provisions that are addressing in general textiles and the management of textile waste. And a third one is the related to the shipment of textile, mainly textile that is assessed as fit for reuse or reuse textile. So we were gonna see now these three elements one by one. Hopefully it will make a little bit clear how this will work. So the extended producer responsibility for textile has a clear focus in terms of products. We will saw also in the next slide a little bit better. So there is an annex, that is the Annex 4C, in which there is a list of products that fall within the scope of extended producer responsibility, meaning for that ones, all the obligation requirements will apply. And we will see in the next slide how these are identified. In addition to defining which products fall within the scope of standard producer responsibility, the target revision of the Waste Framework Directive also specify when producers becomes responsible for the products, for these specific products. And this is when the producer made available on the market the products for the first time within the territorial member states. This means that EPRs have to be paid or producers are responsible for paying the EPR fees in the member states where the products are likely to reach the end users and then become waste and therefore has to be managed. There are different categories of producers. I will not list them all, but these include manufacturers, importers, distributors, and also any other natural person that is making available for the first time the products on the territory of a member states. And includes also the selling online. This is very important. So all kind of means through which products can be made available on the market. Thanks to the extended producer responsibility, producers, that doesn't mean manufacturers, as I said before, it's broader concept, include they have to cover the cost for the collection of textile and for the management of used textile and textile waste. One important aspect is also that producers to fulfill their obligation, they have to register in a producer register, and there will be national producer register for which we are, as in the Commission, we will set the format in order that these producer registers are all harmonized, so they will not be requiring different member states of different fields or different information, because it will be harmonized at EU level. So these are the main general concept of extended producer responsibility. And these, as I said before, are the products that are in scope of EPR, and they are reported in Annex 4C. As you can see, there are two parts of the Annex 4C, Part 1 and Part 2. And for each of that, there is the CNCON, the Combined Nomenclature Code for the products and the description. As one thing that maybe is important to underline is that mattresses and carpets are not in scope of EPR for textile that have been set by this revised Framework Directive. This doesn't mean that member states can eventually also adopt EPR for carpets and mattresses, because this is in their remit, but this specific piece of legislation does not include mattresses and carpets. So as I said before, those are the general rules, but another one important aspect that is specific of EPR for textile is that producers, they have to fulfill their obligations, they extended producer responsibility obligations altogether by designating a so-called producer responsibility organization. In this way, this organization, for which in a member state there can be more than one PRO, producer responsibility organization, then they will be acting on behalf of the producer. So the producer will designate the PROs, so they will be able to choose among different PROs. They will apply for one PRO, so we become member one PROs, and then the PROs will fulfill all the obligations, which means basically the setting up the separate collection system and the managing of the textile waste that is collected. They will also be responsible, together with all the other actors involved in the EPR, so local authorities, social economy entities, waste managers, to set the extended producer responsibility fees that have to be based on weight and where appropriate also by the number of textiles that are made available on the market. And the fees can also be modulated to reflect the sustainability of the products that are made available on the market. Usually we refer to this as eco-modulation of EPR fees. This modulation has to be based on the criteria set under Eco-Design for Sustainable Product Regulation. Indeed, we are waiting for the adoption of a specific delegated act, secondary legislations, that is being prepared now under the Eco-Design for Sustainable Product Regulations, because this specific legislation, delegated act, will select the criteria that will be used for, will define the sustainability requirements that will be then used to set up the modulation, the criteria to modulate the APR fee. So there will be 2 steps. Legislation. First, there will be a delegated act under the Eco-Design for Sustainable Product Regulation, which identify the requirements that will be used for textiles under this regulation. And after that, we will use this under the Waste Framework Directive. We will use these requirements to identify, to set up the criteria to modulate the PR fees. It's a little bit complex, but the overall idea is that we will have harmonized criteria at EU level to eco-modulate the PR fees in order that producers that made available on the market more sustainable products will pay less than the one that made available on the market less sustainable products. This is the overall idea. Among the other obligation of PROs, also to make available all the data on the website, information on the sustainability of the sector, but also on the activities that carry out for collection and management of used and waste textile. So moving to the rules on textile waste management that apply generally to all textile, not only the one that fall within the scope of EPR. We start from an obligation that is already there, which is the obligation for member states to set up separate collection of textile by beginning of this year. This is already in place. It's an obligation that was introduced in 2018. What is new is that all separately collected textile will be considered as waste. This help clarify among different member states what is waste textile and what is used textile, because at the moment there are very different interpretations at member state level of what is considered used textile. This depends a lot also from cultural elements, from the individual assessment of what is textile used or assessed as fit for EU, or instead what is textile waste. So in this way, we hope that we manage to harmonize this concept, and will also help avoid that textile waste is shipped as disguised as used textile, which is a practice that at the moment is different to verify and control. The sorting operations, they have to ensure the treatment of the collected textile in line with the waste hierarchy. So we give priority to reuse or preparing for use over recycling and other disposal operation. And then for the shipment of used textile, so when an operator would like to ship within the EU and outside the EU used textile, there are some new obligations for inspection, data recording, and above all, there is an obligation for sorting the textile that is separately collected, so it's waste. And with the sorting, the operators have also to assess that the textile is really assessed, is reusable, so it has to be assessed as fit for use. And when shipping this used textile, then there has to be also some information regarding the sorting operation that took place and some elements that clarify what is included in the bales that is to be shipped. For all other textile that is not assessed as fit for use, then the waste shipper regulation enter into play, and then the obligation on the waste shipment regulations have to be used for the shipment of textile waste. But there is no ban on the shipment of used textile or textile waste. It's just that they follow two different rules or legislation. The timing that are set in the Waste Framework Directive, so the one I also refer to you is the 1st of January 2025, and that is already there for the setting up a separate collection system. This will be obviously integrated and supported by the Extended Producer Responsibility Scheme when they will enter into force. But the first step is that member states have to transpose into national laws the revised Waste Framework Directive, and there is a deadline for this, which is the 17th of June 2027, which is 20 months after the entry into force of the revised Waste Framework Directive. And then for the extended producer responsibility establishment at member states level, the deadline is 17th of April 2028, which is 30 months after the entry into force of the revised Waste Framework Directive. And for members, for microenterprise, there are an additional 12 months for them to enter in the scope of EPR, so to fulfill the obligations. We want to give a little bit more time to very small companies to be ready for these new obligations. As I said during the presentations, there are also some related initiatives that are being prepared. One is the one that is the delegated act under the ESPR, the Standard Eco-Design for Sustainable Product Regulation, whose adoption is planned for the first quarter 2027. That there is an ongoing study carried out by the Joint Research Center of the European Commission, whose results should be published very soon. I don't know if before the end of the year, soon after the end of the year, where there is already a lot of information and indications on the sustainable requirements that will apply to textile. Another important initiative is the development of end-of-waste criteria for textile. This is also something that is ongoing, and it's the work is being carried out by the Joint Research Centers in this case. On the 3rd or 4th of December, there will be the last stakeholder consultation workshops, and the report that will include technical proposals for setting up end-of-waste criteria for textile is envisaged to be published the first quarter 2026 by the end of February, more or less. And this will be then used by us in DG Environment to develop a specific implementing act setting a regulation for end-of-waste criteria of textile. And this is it more or less from my side. I think with this I'm done. I don't know any extra slides. So I hope this is clear for you, but I think there are also question and answers session at this moment. So I'm happy to reply to any of your questions.
Thank you very much, Dr. Gente, for the super clear presentation. Let's open the floor to questions. I already see one in the chat. So Claire is asking, can you please repeat which textile industry actors fall within the scope of EPR? Specifically, are companies without a B2C offering subject to eco-modulated fees?
It's in the chat, so I can read it also too. I don't see it. I don't think I can see the chat. Sorry, I lost connection. Yeah, can you hear me?
It's on the right, the chat.
Yeah, I lost connection for a second, so I could not see. So the actors that fall within the scope of EPRs are the ones that are making available the products that I showed in the presentations on the market of a member state. So it's not said that has to be a manufacturer, it can be also an importer, a distributor, but in some cases, other actors that are just putting on the market the textile that are included in Annex 4C. Business to consumer, in principles, yes, they are actors that are putting on the market, making available on the market their products to the consumers. So in principle, they are in scope of the EPR. Of the EPR. This doesn't, I mean, the eco-modulation of the fees, this is the second step. First, you have to be part of a scheme up and making to be part of producer responsibility organizations. And after that, the producer responsibility organization will set the level of fees to be paid for specific product categories.
Thank you very much for this answer. There's another question from Kathy. Katie says, hello, Vincenzo. Could you clarify why carpets and mattresses have been excluded at this time?
Yeah, mattresses and carpets were included in the impact assessment accompanying the Commission proposal for the target revision of the Waste Framework Directive, and they were not included in the EPR because these categories of products most of the times are not completely composed of textile fibers. There are already other collection schemes, but particularly for mattresses, that it can be considered as bulky waste. And for these main reasons, they were excluded from the scope of the CPR fees. So basically, the composition, because carpets is very wide and does not include always all the textile fibers, most of the cases no, because they have different layers, they have glue, so it's rather difficult. It's different kind of treatments that they need to be subject to, and also other different collection schemes. And the same is for mattresses. There is a reference to in the revised Waste Framework Directive to the fact that member states may, if they wish so, set up EPR for mattresses, which is something that in general is possible for all product categories, according to the Waste Framework Directive. And generally, the Commission come up with proposal for general rules for EPR for product categories when there is the need of better and more harmonization of these schemes throughout Europe.
Thank you, Dr. Gente. There is another question from Alessia. Alessia says, thanks for the presentation. I wanted to ask which textile product features will be incentivized or penalized under the new regulation through higher or lower eco-modulated fees.
Well, the new delegated act is not ready yet, it's still under preparation. There is the study of the JRC, which is not being finalized, but will be finalized soon. And these are looking at different sustainability requirements that are in the Eco-Design for Sustainable Product regulations. But this regulation, the ESPR, it's a sort of framework regulation. So there are a list of different sustainable requirements that can be applied to different product groups. Now, what they are doing, the GRC, together with other colleagues in the environment, is to select those criteria that will fit for only for textile. And now these requirements has to be implemented by producers. Once this is done, we will look at those requirements and try to we'll use the results of this study and the delegating acts to set criteria for the modulation of the PRF. So it's not there yet. I don't know, I can imagine there will be requirements on durability, on recyclability. So these aspects that can somehow characterize the sustainability of textile products. It is possible that not all the requirements apply to all kinds of products. So also that is something to be seen. But there is still some time for that.
Okay, thank you. There's another question from Claire. Claire asks, how do incentives operate for companies that manage end-of-life processes?
I don't know exactly what is meant, but from the question, I can imagine, what comes to my mind is that within the extended producer responsibility, the PROs will also have to select recyclers or other waste management operators for the recycling of the waste that is separately collected, textile waste. So in this sense, there will be some criteria that are already, I think, indicated in the Waste Framework Directive that can be used for selecting these operators by the PROs. And there will be, obviously, it's the most efficient is the recycling technology, for example. Maybe the most also possibility is for these recycling operators to receive the textile waste that has to be treated. I have to say that also among the different costs that the producer responsibility organization or EPR scheme has to cover, there is also cost for support for research and development, for designing products more sustainably, but also to improve recycling technologies for textiles.
Okay, so basically, if I understood correctly, if your PROs will collaborate with other operators to manage end of life, and these operators will receive some sort of incentives.
Well, there will be contracts. I guess there will be contracts managed. Between the PROs and the operators. So there will be. Well, the incentive. What comes as an incentive is that with the peer, in a way, is that with the EPR textile that are ones that are in place, the amount of textile waste that is collected will increase. So there will be the need of recyclers to recycle more of this textile waste.
Okay, that's clear. There's another question from Gianmarco. Gianmarco asks, what about recycling old textiles with risk to presence of substances no more allowed by REACH?
Well, this will be the present of all textile. It's something that obviously can happen because textile have different lifespan. For the time being, where the obligations that are there apply to recycled products, to the recycling of textiles. So what is recycled has to be in accordance with the product legislation that don't have to contain substances that are not allowed to be placed on the market. But this will be clarified also when the end of waste criteria for textile will be adopted, because there will be clear indications on when a textile that is either prepared for reuse or recycled will cease to be waste and will become a product. So in general lines, at the moment, recycling will have to follow what is in place at the moment. So they have to be sure that they follow, they operate in accordance with the REACH, but regulation, but also POP or CLP regulations. I'll be sure that there are no hazardous substances that are put again on the market.
Maybe I'll ask myself a final question. Okay, actually, no, we have one more question from the public. So how can companies prepare effectively and ensure their business is ready for compliance? So maybe like manufacturers that most likely, I guess, will fall within the EPR scheme.
Yeah, well, that's important to be ready. In addition to have a look at the provisions and the revised Waste Framework Directive, what I would suggest is to get in contact also with producer responsibility organizations that are already there. In some member states, EPR for textile are already implemented, like in France, the Netherlands, Hungary, and to remember if Estonia also. So, and many others are under preparations. Also in Italy, they are getting ready to, I think, have some ministerial decree to be established in advance of the deadline for that is in the Waste Framework Directive. So that I think it's important to already explore the PROs that are there and to talk maybe with the other companies that are operating in other member states where DPRs are in place, and in general also to other economic operators that are maybe operating under other EPR schemes because the rules are quite similar to one another. So this is something that I would advise. Getting ready with talking with the producer responsibility organization, which will be the main actors involved in the implementation of the EPR schemes. It is also possible that apart from national competent authorities, but also local authorities may getting ready for this, and that's also it's something that could be advisable to get in contact with them. And I didn't touch upon this in my presentation, but a special role is also granted to social economy entities because we wanted to recognize their role in the separate collection of textile. So in principle, these actors will be allowed to keep their separate collection system for textile if they wish so, and producer responsibility organization have to collaborate with them and have to ensure that if these entities, for example, will produce textile waste, then producer responsibility organization will have to collect this textile waste for free and then further treating it. So it's a way to recognize really the social values and the possibility of providing a high quality job to many people and the social works they do with these schemes. So that's also something, I don't know, among the people attending the webinar today, there are also representatives of social economy entities. If so, it's also good to see with them how they are organizing themselves. They are big actors also in social economic entities, and they are getting ready for these new tasks that we have.
Thank you very much. There is still one question from Vinesh. Vinesh asks if there's any information as to whether carpets will be added after some time, or it's not in the radar, basically.
Well, not at EU level, as far as I know, and not in 1 year. It's very short, so not for sure in 1 year. But it is possible that member states can specifically in their national EPR scheme, can have matrices in scope of some EPR scheme, but not the EU level. At the moment, what is ongoing at the Commission level is where EPR in general, sustainable producer responsibility, are being addressed is the Circular Economy Act, but we are not looking specifically at waste streams to be included as new EPR. We might have some assessment of new ones, but obviously the time frame could not be for sure 1 year if there will be this possibility.
Is there any other question from the audience?
In the meantime, I can also inform you that in the environment, we started also implementing dialogue with member states in order to address issues that are common in all member states when transposing the Waste Framework Directive into national laws. This will facilitate harmonization of the extended producer responsibility for textile across Europe. We just started, so we collecting information, and maybe if you have doubts and if you want to raise some issues that you think it will come with the implementation of extended producer responsibility, I think you can also get in contact with national authorities. In Italy, I think it's the Ministry of Environment, more or less would be the same in all member states. We have there is a specific formal committee of member states for waste, where there are delegates for the different ministries dealing with waste at national level, and we are meeting them regularly and discussing about issues on waste legislation. And one of the last meetings we had, beginning of the month, we also started this implementing dialogue for the Waste Framework Directive. So if you already envisage possible criticalities in implementing these schemes, you may also refer to them to allay these concerns you might have.
Okay, I see there are no more questions from the audience, so I say we can wrap up today's session. A huge thank you, Dr. Gente, for sharing your insights, and to all of you for joining us and asking lots of questions, lots of great questions, and keeping the conversation alive. We hope today's discussion brought clarity to this crucial regulatory change and sparked ideas on how to deal with it. If you'd like to keep learning, and we hope you do, stay tuned for the upcoming ECONYL Academy podcast. Next up, we'll be diving into two topics, microplastics and ESG ratings. Also, keep an eye on your inbox for our next newsletter. That's where you'll find the latest updates, upcoming sessions, and podcast release dates. Thank you again for being with us today. Thank you again, Dr. Gente. And until next time, take care.
Thank you. Have a good rest of the day.
Thank you.